This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
On this week's programme, we look at last weekend's elections and discuss them with a political analyst.
These elections, we had a series of candidates who were running as so-called independents, but their independence was not really the case in the sense that it was kind of a gimmick ahead of the elections to put the independent label on them so that they wouldn't get any of the, let's say, party negativity.
Cyprus is breaking humanitarian law by pushing asylum seekers back into the buffer zone.
They went to the Burnara reception center. They were registered there, but soon after they were removed and were taken back to the buffer zone.
There's been some good news on Akamas, but not everything is running as it should.
These are important threats to these priority species of street turtles. The one of them is only found in Cyprus and nowhere else in the European Union.
Sunday's elections threw up quite a few surprises, not least of which was the election as an MEP of Phidias Panayotou. And to tell us why she thinks that he managed from nowhere to get fourth place in the vote, we welcome political analyst Andromachi Sophocleos. Andromachi, I think a lot of people just had written off Phidias, a YouTube influencer, and basically a young kid who I think doesn't know very much about politics. What went on?
Well, I think Phidias is kind of he's a person who has been honest throughout. And I think that this was kind of appreciated from the public, especially at a time in which we saw that traditional parties appeared to not be able to gather the support of their voters. The party commitment is being reduced. There is this kind of displeasure and mistrust into what politics is. And I believe that this is what signified and what determined in the end the vote towards Phidias. Phidias managed to amass that vote of people who wanted to show that, look, we are sick and tired. We are sick and tired of you. We are sick and tired of what you're doing, blah, blah. We are voting for something else.
So it was do you think it was a protest vote, therefore? Because you say that he's always been honest, but I don't think many people, certainly I didn't until recently, know that he used to be affiliated to Elam, the far-right people.
Look, I see this a bit more calmly in the sense that I believe that our educational system in Cyprus is such that kind of the default outcome for people who have been through the public educational system in the country is, in a sense, nationalism, etc. And his admission did not startle me, in a sense. And as long as now he does not seem to be affiliated to Elam, what I am trying to say here is that we need to give him time to kind of unfold his positions. I believe that the people who voted for him know that he does not have political positions on issues, because Phidias does not. We have not, and he has been quite clear on the fact that, we've seen other politicians with political positions, they've done nothing, so don't blame me for not having political positions. Obviously, I am a political analyst who is a political being, and such admissions startle me. But at the same time, I cannot but admit that I see that this apolitical nature of our society, this is where it is leading to. So what I'm trying to say is that I don't think that Phidias is in any way the root of a problem. He's a symptom. He's he's something. He's a symptom of something that has been going on for many years in the country, and I cannot put the blame on a 24-year kid.
Oh, I don't think anyone's trying to blame him. What interests me is the fact that to garner such a high percentage of the vote clearly to me shows that, as you said, I think earlier, people are heartily sick and tired of the same names, the same political parties. I've been here since 1975 and it runs in the families, doesn't it? You can almost say who will be the next one to take over that position in that party. They're all coining it in, they're getting their pensions, a lot of them are corrupt. And people have said, we've had enough. And I think that's where it came from. And the fact that such a huge percentage of young people who've never voted before turned out to vote surely should give a wake-up call to all these established political parties.
But it's not only that, it's also, I think that what determined the vote was in fact the age spectrum of 35 to 50, which is people who have, we are talking about people who voted other parties previously and chose to cast their vote to Fidias this time. I think if we are to do justice to the whole picture, we should also mention that a lot of these people who voted for Fidias in the local administration elections, they cast their vote to their political parties or to candidates who belong to political parties. So we need to put in the picture that the European elections are in fact kind of a loose vote. Cypriots don't think that things are determined vastly on the European elections. So I think that also facilitated people to say, okay, I'm going to cast my vote towards Fidias. So that's the one thing that I can comment on. And the other thing, which I think is worth putting in the picture, and maybe in the course of his term in the European Parliament we might get to see a bit more of it, is the fact that Fidias' candidacy, albeit being apolitical in nature, it was still a candidacy that did not challenge any of the core pillars of the Greek Cypriot society. And what am I referring to? So Fidias, he was a person who was very proud of having come out of the special forces in the army in Cyprus. So he really used the army card, the fact that he had gone through all that training and all that difficult sort of training in the special forces. So he ticked the boxes of the army, and at the same time, he is the son of a priest. We were seeing his father a lot in the campaign. He used a lot these references to God, to church. So what I am trying to say is that it was easy, let's say, for a Greek Cypriot who's been sick and tired of everything that they see to cast their vote towards Fidias, who in a sense, albeit challenging the political system, he was not challenging any of the other fundamental pillars in the Greek Cypriot psyche. So it was a vote that they could, in good conscience cast.
OK, let's talk briefly, if we may, about the other elections that took place. I mean, we were voting for so many people, it got a bit confusing, didn't it? But we had the municipal councils, the mayors, the brand new district governors, whatever they do, and the school councils. So there were a lot of other elections going on at the same time. How did you analyse what happened there? Did the independents gain ground again, or was it back to the old party affiliations?
In these elections, we had a series of candidates who were running as so-called independents, but their independence was not really the case, in the sense that it was kind of a gimmick ahead of the elections to put the independent label on them so that they wouldn't get any of the, let's say, party negativity, while in a sense certain political parties were backing them, and without the support of those political parties they would most probably not have run. So that I mean, this is the truth, if we are to be honest. So I think that in the local administration elections we saw once again that it was interesting to see how the winners of the European election, or the so-called winners of the European elections, were kind of the losers in the local administration elections, and vice versa. So that was something that we noted. But at the same time, I think that these elections was kind of a big test. I think we had a number of positions that really should not have been put down to the people's vote. I mean, positions like the head of the district organization, or things like school officers. I think those positions could have been assigned and not have people vote on them. I think that complicated matters, but at the end of the day, I believe that the local administration elections, they were determined by local concerns rather than really party politics.
Okay, but I think it's fair comment what you said about some of those elections being absolutely unnecessary. My rather cynical take on that is that with the local government reform, because so many positions were going to be lost, the people who came up with that were actually trying to create more jobs for the boys so that everybody was happy. Is that an unfair assessment?
Of course, I think it's fair. I think it's cynical, but it is the truth. And I think that, the local administration elections, the local administration reform was something that was absolutely needed in the country. So that is for sure. And it is a good step forward that we have this reform. Having said that, though, the reform in itself has its vast limitations. I mean, we can go on talking about the numbers of municipalities, etc. But at the same time, sort of limitations are also the positions that were created, like deputy mayors. How we were supposed to cut down on the number of municipalities. We did cut down on the number of municipalities, but we created the position of deputy mayors.
It's not clear to me, Andromache, exactly what those deputy mayors are supposed to be doing. My understanding, and do tell me I'm wrong, is that they don't actually have a job description unless the mayor they're serving gives them a job.
And I think that's kind of truth. That's the truth. And at the same time, they are the deputy mayors of smaller districts within the now created municipalities. And we are still behaving as though Cyprus is bigger than it is. We are making a fuss about, Aglanja, for instance, needing a deputy mayor, and Nicosia also needing a deputy mayor, and Engome also needing a deputy mayor, all under the same newly created municipality of Nicosia. I mean, we are complicating matters, and we are trying to pretend as though the problems of people that live in Aglanja could be different from the problems of people that live in mainland Nicosia, which is like, 500 meters down the road. So it's kind of counterintuitive, but I think that was the only way for the political parties to agree to this reform, because things are exactly as you said. They felt that they were losing positions, and they had to do something about it.
Well, we're very good at creating all sorts of problems where we don't need them, aren't we?
And they're very good at, sort of delaying reform rather than having a long haul reform. We're always trying to put limitations in order to make it more digestible, let's say, for the public, for themselves, basically. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we have to leave it there, but it will be very interesting to see how all these new local government positions pan out and who actually is doing a job that they're getting paid for. Andromache Sophocleos, thank you very much for your assessment of these elections. I'm sure we'll talk again.
Thank you, Rosie. Thank you very much.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
The UNHCR in Cyprus issued a press release a little earlier this week that said it was deeply concerned for the safety and well-being of some 31 asylum seekers, including 7 children, who are trapped in the UN buffer zone here in Cyprus. Now, there's some extraordinary things I've read about this incident, and so I've called the UNHCR, and their press officer, Emilia Strovolidou, agreed to talk to me. Emilia, please clarify exactly who these people are, where they came from, and am I right in thinking some of them did actually make it to the Purnara reception centre in the Republic of Cyprus and were then taken back to the buffer zone by the police?
Yes, indeed, that has happened, but let me explain how this situation started. It started to unfold as of 15th of May, with pushbacks occurring in the UN buffer zone. And from the 15th until the 25th of May, we've seen several groups of people trying to cross the buffer zone and enter the areas controlled by the Republic in order to apply for asylum. However, they were intercepted by the Cyprus police in their attempt to cross, and they have been stranded ever since. There was an additional group that was intercepted. That was on the 2nd of June, and yesterday afternoon there was a third group of 4 people arriving in the afternoon who were again intercepted, and they are now in the buffer zone, stranded under very difficult and precarious conditions. While we are offering food and tents and other humanitarian relief assistance in collaboration, of course, with the peacekeeping force in Cyprus, the situation there is really dire, especially with this unrelentless heat, especially those people there with vulnerabilities, some with medical conditions. It makes it even more challenging and risky.
Yes, but Emilia, let's get back to this thing I read, and do please tell me that it's wrong, because it's surely totally against all things that we've signed as a country about humanitarian and international law, and that is the fact that we've pushed people who were in the Republic back out of it into the buffer zone.
Well, yes, the information that we have had is that 5 of them managed to cross the buffer zone. At some point they were not being detected, obviously, and they went to the Purnara reception center. They were registered there, but soon after, when they were recognized as being among the group of the stranded people, they were removed and were taken back to the buffer zone. We were essentially pushed back to the
So
buffer
they
zone.
had applied for asylum, is that correct?
Yes, the asylum process started. The whole process was not completed, but still, from the moment that you express the wish to apply for asylum, at that point, you become an asylum seeker. So also the people who are in the buffer zone and they have not even registered so far, they are still asylum seekers. But these 5 people managed to go to the reception center. They did register, but once they were recognized that they were among the people who were stranded in one location of the buffer zone, they were immediately removed and taken back to the buffer zone.
Which
Again,
is
without
totally
having access.
illegal, is what I'm trying to say, Emilia. What sanctions, if any, can the UNHCR, the United Nations, the international community put on Cyprus for so blatantly breaking these laws?
Well, the situation for sure requires urgent action, as our regional director for Europe has said in this statement, and we have underlined in our communications with the government of the Republic of Cyprus that ensuring effective access to the asylum procedures and adequate reception conditions is an obligation under international refugee law. It is also an obligation under EU law. The European Commission has reiterated that the Republic of Cyprus must apply and enforce all aspects of the EU legislation, including legislation on asylum. And these must be applied in the areas of Cyprus where the government of the Republic of Cyprus can enforce legislation, and that includes the buffer zone. As you know, the EU legislation is suspended only in the north, in the occupied areas.
Okay, we have to wrap this up, Emilia, but it does sound to me as if you're saying we've smacked the Cypriot government on the wrists, but actually there's nothing else we can do. And if that is the case, it actually rather puts up the question as to what's the point of having EU acquis communautaire or indeed international humanitarian law if nobody can do anything if you ignore it.
Well, we as UNHCR are committed to working with the government and other stakeholders to find sustainable solutions that will uphold our shared responsibility to protect people fleeing conflict and persecution, and always within the parameters of the international and the European refugee law. We have long reiterated at the same time that Cyprus, as well as other states on the EU external border, should not be left alone. And for this, there is a need for continued EU resources, solidarity, and responsibility sharing. All this to boost the response capacity of the Republic of Cyprus.
Very diplomatic of you, if I may say so, Emilia, but we'll have to leave it there. And do please keep us informed about how this pans out, because in temperatures over 40 degrees, I understand that we're expecting more high temperatures, vulnerable people, children and so on, living in tents with limited access to healthcare, water and everything else is not satisfactory at all. In fact, it's downright unhumane. Many thanks for your time.
Thank you, Rosie.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
We've spoken many times before about the challenges facing one of our pristine nature areas, the Akamas Peninsula, and we're going to bring it up again on this week's programme with Klidos Papastylianou, who is the Environmental Policy Officer for the Cyprus Conservation Foundation. So, Klidos, bring us up to speed, if you will, because I think that you said recently there have been some positive proposed changes. Can you tell us what those are? Last time we spoke, we were talking about roads much wider than they should be and nobody taking responsibility. Has that all been ironed out?
Not exactly, but there have been significant and positive developments since then. Firstly, there was a new appropriate assessment on the first phase of the improvement of the three main forest roads in Akamas National Forest Park, for which a mess has been created the past few months. So on March, we had a new appropriate assessment setting legal binding and substantial terms for either preventing more damage or restoring damage that has been already done in the area. The only thing missing right now about this first phase regards the four bridges between Avakas Gorge and Toksefka Beach. And a second, more recent development has been a couple of weeks ago. The Ministry of Agriculture, Rural Development and Environment has presented its proposals for the amendment of the whole Akamas National Forest Park Sustainable Development Plan.
And I understand that Klidos, meant that they've actually decided not to construct some of the roads that were originally in the plans. Is that right?
Exactly. The so-called Sustainable Development Plan of the Akamas National Forest Park includes 11 main forest roads and 14 visitors management nodes. It seems that the ministry proposed the rejection of 3 kiosk snack bars. It also suggests to prevent further improvement of several main forest roads, most importantly the one from Lara Peninsula to Cape Arnaudis.
And we must just, let me just interrupt you there. For people who aren't familiar with the area, Klidos, every time you mention Lara and Doxeftra, we're talking there, are we not, about our hugely important turtle nesting beaches.
Exactly. We are talking about actually the most strictly protected area in the whole of Cyprus, declared both as a special area of conservation for natural habitats and wild flora and fauna, but also as a special protection area for wild birds. The area is also declared as a marine protected area and a special protected area of Mediterranean importance by UNEP-MAP, a United Nations Environment Programme Mediterranean Action Plan. So this area includes the coastline from Aspros Podamos in Peja to Lara Ininia community.
Can I ask you whether or not those developments that there was an uproar about a few months back or even last year, have they been stopped? Because there were plans, I think, to let the cafe that was on the nesting beach continue operating. There had been roads cut down to it, and I believe some form of development started. So what's happening with all that?
There are currently 2 illegal, and I'm stressing that out, illegal facilities in South Lara Bay, a restaurant and a beach bar, upon the nesting beaches of the 2 sea turtle species, Caretta and the green turtle. According to the initial terms, those 2 illegal facilities should be brought up to court and demolished. The procedure is under development. The term remains the same. What we are discussing about new facility nodes and for the management of visitors and so on, these are new developments proposed by the Forest Department itself. So what it remains to be seen right now, and I'm coming to, let's say, the negative aspect of the ministry's proposal, we do recognize that cutting some nodes in Geronissos Jonis and Joni and Fontana Morosa are positive developments, but the one in South Lara remains as the 2 illegal restaurants and snack bars in the area. These are important threats to this priority species of street turtles. The one of them is only found in Cyprus and nowhere else in the European Union. 75% of its reproduction in the whole EU takes place in this small area, so we cannot afford putting more pressure on the coastline. And it also remains to be seen about what is going to happen with the bridges that I referred before. Those are significant interventions with negative impacts for another critical endangered species found in the area, the European eel. It's a kind of species that comes from the sea, grows up in the mainland within the rivers, and then returns to the sea. So we'll have to see the final proposal coming from the ministry, and most importantly, assess them in the framework of the ad hoc committee on appropriate assessment.
Okay, very quickly, if you will, Klidos, you know all the people involved in all of these committees and so on and so forth. Do you get the feeling that this time they do mean what they say? We've had so many false alarms of people saying things and then just letting other things happen.
Yes, I do believe that this time there will be a significant development regarding this plan. I'm not in the position to say if we'll reach the point that we would like to reach as environmental organizations, but definitely it seems that they all understand that what has been done in the area the past few months is something to avoid in the future.
Well, I was greatly pleased to see that I think one of the things they've decided is that the few roads that they are going to improve, they say, are not actually going to be tarmacked. Finally, has somebody woken up to the fact that if we have heavy rains in the winter, tarmacked roads just mean that rainwater runs off and then we get all sorts of mudslides and goodness knows what, and the whole area is totally damaged.
Exactly. I haven't referred to that, Rosie, because that's actually a legally binding term imposed from the very beginning. The fact that even the people that disagree with the term and try to reach that point through other methods seem to understand that this is not the solution, and the impacts that are severe, from soil sealing to species disturbance, habitat fragmentation and loss and so on.
Well, we'll have to talk to you again when some more decisions are taken. It was another good piece of news, I thought, that I think that they're going to also look at the use of quad bikes in this area, because they, of course, just churn up the roads completely. So there's an awful lot of work still to be done. Klidos, keep up the good work, and do keep us informed, please, as to how the measures to protect our Akamas Peninsula are going. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Rosie.
Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.